Not fascinating, but it's an article. It's kind of fascinating. It's
not fascinating. It's just tedious and annoying, like a lot of things in pop culture.
The worldview of the critic is kind of interesting to me. So it says Rolling Stone film critic warns against seeing The Whale because it reinforces the notion that fat people have brought their suffering upon themselves through lack of coping skills.
Firstly, like, do you want to see The Whale? Or are you excited?
I kind of want to see it. I mean, it's out in December, right? Like, I kind of want to see it.
Do you think we should review it?
Maybe. I mean, he got a 6-minute standing ovation.
For goodness sakes.
For goodness sakes.
They were crying.
So basically, Katie Rife, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that right. If not, I apologize. Says that, according to Rolling Stone critic Katie Rife, audiences of all body shapes and sizes should avoid seeing Brendan Fraser's return to the silver screen. Because it reinforces the notion that fat people are objects of pity who have brought their suffering upon themselves through a lack of coping skills. Director Darren Aronofsky says that the film creator behind such esoteric and surrealist psychological thrillers such as Pi and Black Swan has adapted it from a play of the same name by Samuel D. Hunter. The Whale follows the struggles of Charlie Fraser, a 600-pound man who, after years of shutting himself inside and binge eating to cope with his guilt over leaving his family for his late mistress, attempts to turn his life around, starting by reconnecting with his 17-year-old daughter. That sounds honestly fascinating to me, kind of. Like, as somebody who it wouldn't necessarily be my genre, redemption is a big thing to me, and I love the idea of redemption and the concept of redemption in storytelling.
And that's cross genres,
yes.
I think. So,
but to me, what that tells me is that Katie Rife can't look at the deeper context of what a movie means unless it absolutely falls in line with what her worldview is.
The way her tweets were worded, it sounds like she only judged this film based on the surface level of it and what it immediately made her feel, and not what any of it meant or was supposed to mean.
And to be honest,
that's not what a critic does?
I can identify a little bit with that because I tend to review things based more on how a movie made me feel or how a television show made me feel than on its objective points. So I can identify with that. I think her reasoning is a bit ridiculous.
It's also that
what she said is that it was triggering for her based on her personal experiences, which doesn't speak to the quality of the film.
No, and to be fair,
it's about her personal sensibilities.
I can't watch movies like heavy into drug use anymore. Like, I don't watch Clockwork Orange. What's the
Requiem for a Dream?
I can't watch Requiem for a Dream anymore. I mean, even that, like,
yeah, but what if you watched it and then you said this is a bad film because it has content in it that I find triggering?
Wait, why?
Because I have a history of addiction. So
I did not know that.
The hopelessness that movie evokes is so real to me that I can't watch it anymore. But I saw it before I had that problem, so I can watch it, or I can judge it objectively. Right. But I imagine that this is true of a lot of people. Like, I imagine that a woman or a man who is a victim of some type of assault, of like sexual assault or something, probably has a hard time watching scenes in a movie or something like that because it evokes something that happened to them that's very serious, that's triggering. Something like this, I feel like if you're a movie director, or a movie critic, excuse me, maybe you need to be aware of what those particular triggers are and then try to detach even more than you normally would so that you can do your best, because it is your job to give it the most objective review possible.
Well, before seeing the film, she knew exactly the type of content that was going to be in it. So she's still using that as criteria to judge it.
Let's read the tweets.
Okay.
Let's read the tweet. So she says, I can't recommend in good conscience that fat people watch The Whale. I can't recommend that skinny people watch it either, since it reinforces the notion that fat people are objects of pity who have brought their suffering upon themselves through a lack of coping skills. But isn't the point that he overcomes it? I'm assuming.
Well, at the very least, you should recognize that if they want to tell a story of one person who is fat for whom that is true, then that shouldn't say anything about anyone else but that character.
That's the point I wanted to make, is that this is another example of they only see the world as collective groups, and that character must be an avatar for everybody in that group.
He is fat people as a group.
That was the point I wanted to come back to.
We're all circling the drain.
Basically, the idea is it's why it's funny why they talk about Like you're like everything is when you change what a character looks like as a good guy, it's a testament to the entirety of that race or that gender.
Yes.
Whereas if you change the race or gender to a bad guy, it's a stereotype of that gender, which is not. It's an individual.
There are no individual stories.
There are no individual stories to them. That's like that. You're literally going to run out of. Well, they've already run out of the ability to be creative because they don't know how to tell stories based on individuals. You can only tell stories based on collective groups, and there's nothing more poisonous to storytelling than to focus on collectivism.
Yeah, they will never laud a movie where somebody overcomes something on their own.
No,
it has to be through some sort of like this person was down and out, but thankfully ABC group or government entity.
You can't even show them go through unconventional means to overcome a problem,
right. Well,
even if it's not done alone. Mm-hmm. If it's not done through institutions that are approved, it's not allowed to be portrayed.
Well, because if your family helps you overcome it, that's a problem because not everybody has a family.
Right.
How dare you? How dare you suggest that we all? But
government is there for everyone.
Family.
Exactly. If you overcome it on your own, you're saying you're setting unrealistic expectations that somebody else who's in a similar position. What if they can't overcome it on their own? Then that's a bad precedent that you're setting, making them feel like they need to overcome it. What used to be viewed as a virtue, which was, and by the way, they openly mocked the idea of pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and succeeding on your own because they've bought into the nihilist worldview that we're just basically meat puppets here to just exist until the climate change takes us all out, basically.
Until the sea levels rise.
So it says massive red flags for, I'm guessing the EDs means eating disorders. Eating disorders and fat phobia. The main character endures over an hour of the cruelest verbal abuse imaginable and later tries to commit suicide by food. I have dealt with bulimia and binge eating. In a binge eating disorder on and off for years and found it incredibly triggering.
What does that have to
make
do with the
it
movie?
A bad movie. In fact, if anything, aren't you looking to be represented on screen as somebody else who overcame similar problems in their life?
Well, here's her problem with that. She said, you can tell that no actually fat peoples were involved in the production because of a major plot point where the protagonist is dying but refuses to go to the hospital even though he has money to pay the bills.
That is insane. That conclusion is insane. As if the only reason somebody ever chose to not go to a hospital was financial and not that.
There are so many other medical issues that people avoid treatment for.
Yes.
Like
it literally is. It's somebody who cannot see the world outside the lens of what their own world experience is. And that goes to our narcissistic culture.
It's not even a take though. This is just social cachet.
Yeah.
Like it's virtue signal.
And then it says the movie treats this as a combination of selflessness and suicidality, never considering the very obvious reason why a 650-pound person would avoid doctors. It's called medical fatphobia, you absolute pricks.
So she's saying that the only reason that the guy would never go to a hospital is because he's afraid of being called
because of institutional fatphobia.
Yes. This is the world we live in now, and it's never I don't see this ever going away. I don't.
Like, why does she feel like she has the right to speak for everyone?
I also want to point out that even in the realms of this ridiculous review,
blue check mark.
She's still part of the I am part of the current thing because she's like, oh, but Brendan Fraser was great in it, because right now it's very cool to be like big on Brendan Fraser. So even though she hates this movie, she has to let everyone know that she is part of the in group by complimenting Brendan Fraser.
50.01% of people believe that.
Yes.
One valid point that she could make is that they missed the mark in the tone of the movie, because she noted that the audience reacted with laughter at one of the scenes where the main character drops a key and can't pick it up.
And we don't know what the tone of it is yet, so we can't even...
We can see, like, you know, once it's out, whether it was missing the mark there or in other scenes. Tonally, was it trying to like add comic relief in some way?
It could have been something even more
there's so many
on target where it's like they do it for a laugh, but you're supposed to feel bad after the laugh. You know, like you laugh and you're like, haha, oh.
But there's no complexity to human emotion in these people's minds.
Right.
Perhaps her job as a reviewer for a prestigious site like Rolling Stone is to set aside her life experience and review the film based on her merits, and maybe in the conclusion add those parts of it that say I did my best to review it in the most unbiased way possible, but due to issues that happened to be part of my everyday life, it did affect my experience, and if you have suffered from something similar, it may affect your view of the movie as well.
But that would take integrity.
So
that's what people would say a trigger warning is, but I don't think that's true, because trigger warnings aren't really about encouraging an individual person's discretion. They're about like blacklisting a movie for an entire group of people indiscriminately.
For medical fatphobia. Medical fatphobia.
Wait, what?
Well, I'm just saying because medical fatphobia.
You absolute pricks.
You absolute pricks.
I mean, you can tell that she is just fuming.
Also,
like, put down the phone.
It is interesting that she didn't call out the fact that Brendan Fraser had to wear a fat suit to do this, because that would have been the
that would have been my
that's
first
the obvious
go-to.
criticism.
That would have been the why couldn't you get an actual 650-pound person to play this role?
Maybe because there aren't many 650-pound actors or actresses.
There's a really second time I brought up House. There's an episode of House where Pruitt Taylor Vince has to wear a fat suit because he plays like an obese character. And in that episode, he's 650 pounds, and he's like around that. And they break. And of course, because it's House, they're absolutely ruthless about this dude being overweight. But in the episode, they're looking for all the reasons he might be sick, and of course all of them are related to his weight, but he ends up dying of lung cancer. Had never smoked a day in his life. So, but that was the point of the episode, was that the character got sick, but it had nothing to do with his weight. It goes more to the nihilist and
sometimes evil things happen and it doesn't make sense, and it's not deserved.
Yep, exactly. So I just maybe we review it, maybe we don't, but it was just a shockingly inauthentic or biased review for something that she's basically like, imagine working for Rolling Stone.
Shockingly, really?
I found it shocking in a way. Like, okay, maybe not shocking.
Movie critics are socially maladjusted and not able to detach their personal experiences from the art that they're viewing.
Then let me ask this: do we have that problem?
I hope not. I mean,
are we being fair to Lord of the Rings?
I think we are, and that's why we actually have gotten some pushback and some hate for that, because people want to hear a takedown of it, and we're not willing to mindlessly just go against it because it's cool. Yeah. I hope that we don't ever do that.
I'm trying to think of the movies where I know I can't be objective. I turn off. So and we don't review because I know I can't give it an objective review. There's a couple of those, but like for the most part, I'd like to think that at the very least you can find something to like and something you even dislike, or that you don't find enjoyable. And I think everyone should be looking to do a little bit more of that. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.